A billionaire known for his wealth and power broke down crying while watching the security footage from his own home. On the screen, his briefcase with $500,000 was still wide open, and there he was, collapsed on the cold balcony floor, skin pale, breathing shallow after passing out drunk. Then a young cleaning lady walked in, but instead of taking the money, she checked his pulse, dragged his body onto a chair, cooked him a hangover soup, and stayed by his side all night. Before leaving at dawn, she left something small inside the briefcase with a handwritten note, and those words forced a man to take a hard look at his life and believe in people again. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Robert Hayes was asleep. His eyes were shut tight. His breathing was labored. His body lay sprawled across the cold stone floor, one arm pinned beneath him, the other stretched toward the open glass door. Robert Hayes, 75 years old, billionaire, founder of Hayes Logistics International, the largest shipping and warehouse empire in the American Midwest, was completely wasted. The kind of drunk that makes you forget everything. The kind of drunk that makes you spill a stack of cash while reaching for a bottle of 25-year-old Macallan. The kind of drunk that leaves the most powerful man in the city utterly defenseless. Hundreds of $100 bills lay scattered across the bedroom carpet. The bedroom door stood open, as if he'd stumbled inside earlier and never bothered to clean up. Inside the briefcase, at least $500,000 in cash sat exposed like an open invitation. The money was meant for a real estate deal tomorrow, a private purchase he preferred to handle in cash, away from prying eyes and paper trails. Today was the anniversary. 20 years ago, on this exact date, Catherine Hayes had taken her last breath. Pancreatic cancer. 4 months from diagnosis to death. 4 months of watching the woman he had loved wither away, becoming smaller and weaker and more translucent, until she simply wasn't there anymore. Every year Robert escaped to this house. The old house, the one in the suburbs where he and Catherine had lived when they were younger and poor and impossibly happy. Before the money came, before the empire, before everything changed. The house had been empty for decades. He kept it maintained but never lived there. He couldn't bear to. But every year on this day he came back alone. He dismissed the staff. He sent his driver home. He wanted no witnesses to his grief. He sat in their old bedroom. He looked at her photographs, and he drank until he couldn't feel anything anymore. His company didn't know where he was. His board of directors thought he was taking a personal day. No one questioned him. No one ever did. That was the price of power. People stopped asking questions. The house was old, the security system outdated. He had installed a few cameras years ago, one in the study downstairs, one covering the kitchen and living area, but they weren't connected to any monitoring service. Just old recordings that fed to a hard drive he rarely checked. The system was a relic from more paranoid times, before he had a security team, before he had billions. But Robert's isolation wasn't just about power. 20 years ago, his closest friend, a man he'd considered a brother, had swindled him out of $3 million and vanished without a trace. 10 years ago, the business partner he'd trusted most had sold company secrets to competitors. 5 years ago, the nephew he'd been grooming for the company was caught leaking confidential information. Every time he let someone get close, he got stabbed in the back. So Robert stopped letting anyone get close. He had employees, associates, board members, people he worked with professionally. But true intimacy, true vulnerability, true trust, he had closed that door decades ago. He'd built an invisible wall around his heart, taller than any skyscraper. He had billions of dollars but not a single person he could truly confide in. He was the richest man in this city, but also the loneliest. And tonight, passed out drunk on the cold balcony of his empty house, briefcase hanging open, he had no idea his life was about to change. He had no idea that the person who would change everything was already downstairs, sweeping the courtyard, about to look up and see him lying there. He had no idea what was about to happen. Sophia Brown was tired. Not just physically tired, though her body ached from hours of scrubbing floors, washing windows and clearing away years of dust in the old Hayes house. No, Sophia carried a different kind of exhaustion, the kind that settles deep in your bones when life keeps knocking you down and you keep getting back up, over and over again, wondering how many more times you can do it. She was 22 years old. She should have been in her senior year at the University of Illinois Chicago, finishing her degree in business administration, preparing for job interviews, dreaming about her future. Instead, she was wearing old work clothes, cleaning a stranger's house for cash, trying not to think about the stack of medical bills sitting on her kitchen table. Sophia had dropped out of college 8 months ago, not because she wanted to, not because she wasn't smart enough. She had maintained a 3.7 GPA for 3 years, had been on the dean's list twice, had even won a small scholarship for academic excellence. She dropped out because her mother got sick. Gloria Brown, 51 years old, had been diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease. The treatments were expensive, the insurance was inadequate. The bills kept piling up like snow in a Chicago winter, and no matter how hard Sophia shoveled, she could never clear them fast enough. So Sophia made a choice. She took every cleaning job she could find. She picked up extra hours whenever possible. She sold her laptop, her textbooks, her nice clothes. She moved into a tiny studio apartment with her mother, where they shared a single bed, and ate rice and beans 3 times a week. And still it wasn't enough. The medical bills kept coming. The landlord kept threatening eviction. The collectors kept calling. Some nights, Sophia would lie awake next to her sleeping mother, staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering if this was all her life would ever be. Wondering if she would spend the rest of her days scrubbing other people's floors, watching other people live the life she had dreamed of. But then she would hear her mother's breathing, steady, peaceful, alive, and she would remind herself why she was doing this. Love doesn't ask for reasons, it just asks you to show up. And so Sophia showed up, job after job, house after house. Tonight was no different, or so she thought. This job had come through an agency, a one-day cleaning gig at an old house in the suburbs. The owner wanted it cleaned thoroughly, every room, every surface, every corner, good pay, cash, no questions asked. The agency had told her the owner would be away, the house would be empty. Sophia had arrived at 4 p.m. and had been working steadily ever since. The house was beautiful but neglected. Dust covered every surface, cobwebs hung in corners. It was clear no one had lived here in years, though someone was maintaining the exterior. She had cleaned the downstairs first, the living room, the kitchen, the study. Then she had moved to the courtyard, sweeping away dead leaves and debris that had accumulated over the seasons. It was nearly 8 p.m. when she looked up, and her heart stopped. Through the glass doors of the second-floor balcony, she could see a figure, a man, lying on the floor, not moving. For one terrible moment, Sophia thought he was dead. Then she saw the bottle, the spilled whiskey, the way his chest was rising and falling, barely, but rising. He was alive, but he didn't look good. Sophia stood frozen in the courtyard, her mind racing. Call 911. Call someone. Walk away. This isn't your problem. But even as the thoughts formed, she hesitated. She had seen this before. Her uncle Marcus, her mother's younger brother, passed out at a family gathering when she was 12. Everyone thought he was just sleeping it off. Her mother had been the one to check on him, to notice he wasn't breathing right. 3 days in the ICU, permanent lung damage. She looked at the man on the balcony again. His position was wrong, his head tilted at an angle that could obstruct his breathing. The stone floor was cold, dangerously cold for someone unconscious. But she also knew the risk of getting involved, of being alone with an unconscious wealthy white man in an empty house. She was a black woman. He was clearly rich. If he woke up confused, if he accused her of something, if the police got involved, the scenarios played out in her mind, each one worse than the last. Accusations, interrogations, her word against his, a poor black cleaning girl versus a wealthy homeowner. She knew how that story ended. And 911. What would she even say? I'm a cleaning lady, and I found the homeowner drunk on his balcony. They would ask questions, file reports, maybe call the police anyway. And then she'd be right back in the same nightmare, explaining what she was doing here, why she didn't just leave, why she thought she had the right to touch him. Walk away. The voice of self-preservation whispered, this isn't worth your safety, your future, your freedom. But another voice, quieter, steadier, spoke up. Her father's voice. You do what's right, baby girl. Not what's safe, not what's easy, what's right. And her uncle's face, the way he'd looked in that hospital bed, after his lungs never fully recovered. Someone had checked on him. Someone had noticed. That someone had been her mother. Sophia took a deep breath, and she made her choice. She ran inside and up the stairs. The master bedroom was huge, bigger than her entire apartment. But Sophia barely noticed the expensive furniture, the antique decorations, the photographs on the nightstand. All she could see was the man on the balcony. Up close, he looked even worse. His skin was clammy. His breathing was shallow, each exhale carrying the sour stench of whiskey. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck. His pulse was there, weak but steady, not thready, not dangerous, just drunk. She assessed him quickly, the way her mother had taught her after Uncle Marcus. His color wasn't good, but it wasn't the gray of oxygen deprivation either. His breathing was shallow but regular. He needed to get off this cold floor, needed to be in a better position, but this wasn't a medical emergency, not yet. He needs to get off this floor. The bedroom had a large armchair near the window. If she could get him into it, at least he'd be warmer, safer. His airway would be clearer. But Robert Hayes was not a small man. Sophia was 5'4", maybe 120 pounds after a big meal. Robert was easily 6 feet, probably 180, 190 pounds of dead weight. She wanted to get him to the bed. That would be best. But after one attempt to lift him, she knew that was impossible. The armchair would have to do. Think, Sophia, think. Her eyes darted around the room. She remembered something, a technique from a first aid video she'd watched years ago, after Uncle Marcus. How to move someone who weighs more than you. She ran to the bedroom and grabbed the bedsheet. Back on the balcony, she worked quickly, rolling Robert slightly to one side, sliding the sheet under his back, then rolling him the other way to pull it through. Now she had handles. She grabbed the corners of the sheet, braced her feet against the doorframe, and pulled. He slid a few inches, then a few more. "Come on," she grunted, her legs straining, her back screaming in protest. Using the sheet as a sled, she managed to drag him through the balcony doors and into the bedroom. The carpet helped, less friction than the stone. Getting him into the armchair was the hardest part. She positioned the chair as close as possible, then used the sheet to lift his upper body while she maneuvered behind him, pushing with her shoulder, leveraging her weight. It took her nearly 15 minutes. By the end she was drenched in sweat, her arms trembling, her lungs burning. But finally, Robert Hayes was slumped in the armchair. As she dragged him into the bedroom, she noticed the open leather briefcase on the floor near the dresser. Bills were scattered across the carpet, some half crumpled, as if he dropped them while reaching for another drink. Not elegantly, not comfortably. His head lolled to one side, his arms hung limp, but he was off the cold stone. His breathing seemed easier. He wasn't going to choke. Sophia stood back, her whole body trembling with exertion. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He was old, tired, even in unconsciousness. His face carried lines of worry and sadness. On the nightstand, she noticed a framed photograph of a beautiful woman with kind eyes. His wife. Sophia wondered, where is she? Sophia's breath caught in her throat. There had to be $500,000 there. Maybe more. For a long moment, she just stared. That money could change everything. Her mother's treatments, the rent, the bills, everything that kept her up at night, everything that had forced her to abandon her dreams, it could all be solved. Right here, right now. He would never know. He was unconscious. He was drunk. By the time he woke up, she would be long gone. He probably wouldn't even remember opening the briefcase. Take it. The voice was seductive, reasonable. It painted pictures in her mind. Her mother in a proper hospital bed, getting the best treatment, a real apartment, food that wasn't rice and beans, a chance to go back to school. Take it. You've earned it. You've suffered enough. He has more money than he could ever spend. He won't miss it. Sophia's hand trembled. She thought about her mother, lying in that tiny apartment, waiting for her daughter to come home. She thought about the doctor's latest bill, still unpaid. She thought about all the people who had more than they needed, while she had less than she deserved. Take it. But then she heard another voice, quieter, steadier, her father's voice. The world is gonna test you, baby girl. People gonna tell you that the rules don't apply when times are hard. They gonna tell you that desperation justifies anything. But the only thing you truly own is your integrity. You give that up, and you got nothing left. Sophia's hand stopped. She looked at the money. She looked at the unconscious man. She looked at her own reflection in the dark window, and she made her choice. She knelt down and began picking up the scattered bills. One by one she gathered them. She straightened them. She organized them by denomination, hundreds here, 50s there, 20s in their own pile. Then she placed them all back in the briefcase, every single dollar. But she didn't close the briefcase, not yet, because she had more work to do. Sophia went downstairs to the kitchen. It was old but well equipped. Clearly someone had loved cooking here once. She opened the refrigerator, and found it surprisingly stocked. Someone had prepared for his visit. She found vegetables, ginger, rice, everything she needed. For the next hour, Sophia cooked. She made congee, rice porridge, the way her mother had taught her. Simple, warm, easy on the stomach. Perfect for someone who had poisoned themselves with alcohol. She made ginger tea, strong and hot, to help with the nausea he would surely feel when he woke. She found clean towels and soaked one in cool water, placing it on his forehead to help with the fever he was running. And she stayed. All through the night, Sophia sat in a chair across from Robert Hayes, watching him breathe. Every hour, she checked his pulse, still steady, still regular. Every 2 hours, she changed the towel on his forehead. When he stirred and groaned, she spoke softly to him, though he couldn't hear her. "You're okay. You're safe, just rest." She didn't know why she was doing this. She didn't owe this man anything. She had been hired to clean his house, not to nurse him through a drunken stupor. But something kept her there. Maybe it was the photograph on the nightstand, the woman with the kind eyes. Maybe it was the sadness on his face, even in sleep. Maybe it was just the simple truth that he was a human being who needed help, and she was the only one there to give it. Whatever the reason, she stayed. Around 3 a.m. Robert's breathing changed. It became steadier, deeper. The color started returning to his face. Around 5 a.m., he began to stir. His eyes fluttered. He mumbled something. A woman's name, Catherine. Then he went still again, but now it was the stillness of real sleep, not unconsciousness. Sophia knew she should stay, should wait for him to wake up, should explain everything, who she was, why she was there, what had happened. But at 5:30 a.m., her phone buzzed, a message from her mother's neighbor. "Your mom had a bad night, fever and vomiting. I'm with her now, but you should come home as soon as you can." Sophia's heart clenched. She had to go, now. But she couldn't just leave without explanation. He would wake up, find a stranger's cooking on his stove, and have no idea what had happened. She needed to leave something. Something that would explain. Something that would prove her innocence if he ever wondered. And then she knew. Her hand went to her chest, to the necklace hidden beneath her shirt, her father's necklace, the only thing she had left of him, a simple silver chain with a tiny cross pendant. He had given it to her on her 14th birthday, 3 months before his heart attack took him from her forever. She had never taken it off, not once in 8 years. Leave the necklace? Why? But she understood the logic even as she hesitated. She was a stranger, a cleaning lady. She had been alone in his house all night, with access to everything he owned. When he woke up, he might have questions. He might wonder if anything was missing. He might even call the police. The necklace was proof. Proof that she intended to come back. Proof that she wasn't running away with something of his. Proof that she had nothing to hide. Because who would leave behind their most precious possession if they were guilty of anything? She thought about leaving her phone number in the note, but something made her hesitate. She didn't want to give out personal information to a stranger, even one she had just spent the night caring for. The agency had her contact information. That would be enough. Her hands trembled as she reached behind her neck and unclasped the chain. The silver was warm from her skin. The tiny cross pendant caught the first light of dawn, glinting softly. She held it for a moment, feeling its weight in her palm. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered. "I'll get it back. I promise. I'll come back and explain everything." She walked to the briefcase and placed the necklace inside, on top of the neatly stacked bills. Then she pulled out her notepad and wrote, "Sir, I was hired by the cleaning agency to clean your house today. They told me it would be empty, but when I was cleaning the courtyard, I looked up and saw you collapsed on the balcony floor. You were unconscious, and the stone was very cold. I was worried you might get sick or worse, so I brought you inside and moved you to the chair. I used the bedsheet to drag you. I'm sorry, I wasn't strong enough to lift you properly. I wanted to move you to the bed, but I couldn't manage it. I made you some congee and ginger tea, they're on the stove. My mother always said they help with hangovers. I stayed with you through the night to make sure you were okay. You called out a woman's name a few times, Catherine. I hope she's well. I'm sorry I couldn't wait for you to wake up. My mother is sick and I just got word she needs me. I have to go to her. I want you to know your briefcase was open when I found you, with money scattered on the floor. I put everything back. I took nothing. I am leaving my necklace as proof. It belonged to my father, who passed away when I was 14. It is the most valuable thing I own, not because of what it costs, but because of what it means to me. Please keep it until I can come back and explain everything in person. The cleaning agency has my contact information. My name is Sophia Brown. I hope you feel better. Respectfully, Sophia. She read the note twice, checking for errors. Then she folded it carefully and placed it beside the necklace in the briefcase. She took one last look at Robert Hayes, now sleeping peacefully in the armchair, his breathing steady and strong. Take care of yourself, she whispered. Then she gathered her things and left. She didn't know that an old camera in the study had captured her rushing in, pulling out a bedsheet, then disappearing upstairs. Clear evidence that she had acted in panic, not calculation. She didn't know that in a few hours, Robert Hayes would wake up with a splitting headache and a terrible feeling that something had happened. She didn't know that her simple act of honesty would set in motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. All she knew was that she had done the right thing. And sometimes, that has to be enough. Robert Hayes woke up late that morning with the worst hangover of his 75 years. His head throbbed, his mouth tasted like something had died in it. His neck was stiff from sleeping in the armchair, and when he tried to stand, his back screamed in protest. God, he groaned, gripping the armrest for support. Never again. He said that every year. He never meant it. The first thing he noticed was that he was in the armchair. He distinctly remembered being on the balcony, watching the sunset, drinking to Catherine's memory. He remembered the cold stone under his back. He remembered nothing else, but now he was in the bedroom. In the armchair, with a blanket over his legs that he definitely hadn't put there. How? The second thing he noticed was the smell, something warm, savory, coming from downstairs. Had he cooked something? He couldn't remember. He certainly couldn't cook. And then he saw the briefcase. It was closed now. He distinctly remembered opening it last night. He'd been looking for something, maybe just counting the money for tomorrow's meeting, before the whiskey took over. Had he closed it? He couldn't remember. Robert walked over to the briefcase and opened it. And there, sitting on top of the neatly stacked bills, was something that didn't belong. A note, a folded piece of paper, and beside it, a necklace, a simple silver chain with a tiny cross pendant. Robert picked up the note with trembling fingers. He unfolded it. He read it. He read it again. You called out a woman's name a few times, Catherine. I hope she's well, Catherine. Robert sat down on the floor, right there next to the briefcase, and he cried. For his wife, for his loneliness, for the stranger who had stayed with him all night, who had heard him call for a woman dead 20 years. But the tears didn't last, because Robert Hayes had not built a billion-dollar company by being naive. He had not survived 20 years in business by trusting handwritten notes from strangers. He wiped his eyes. He stood up, and he remembered the cameras. Robert went to the study and pulled up the old security system. The footage was grainy. These cameras were at least 15 years old, but clear enough. He watched the footage from the study camera as the young woman hurried into the room, clearly distressed. She opened drawers, pulled out a bedsheet, then disappeared from view, moving quickly and purposefully, as if she had made a decision and was acting on it before she could change her mind. A few minutes later, she reappeared briefly, dragging the sheet behind her, then exited the frame again, heading toward the stairs. The study camera lost sight of them after that. There were no cameras on the second floor. He had never felt the need. He switched to the kitchen camera. There she was, an hour later, chopping vegetables. Her face was tired but focused. She moved with quiet efficiency, stirring a pot, checking the stove, preparing a tray. He watched her carry the tray upstairs, out of frame. He watched her come back down, hours later, checking her phone. Her expression changing, worry, urgency. She paced for a moment, clearly torn. Then she went back upstairs. 10 minutes later, she came down with her bag and left. Robert sat in the study for a long time. He didn't have footage of everything. He couldn't see what happened in the bedroom, the hours she'd apparently spent watching over him, the towel on his forehead, the way she'd covered him with a blanket, but he could see enough. He could see her face when she first appeared in the study, exhausted, determined, not calculating, not scheming, exhausted, determined, not calculating, not scheming. He could see her in the kitchen, cooking for a stranger at 2 a.m., not looking around for valuables, not checking drawers, just cooking. He could see the moment she got the message about her mother, the way her whole body tensed, the way she still went back upstairs, probably to write the note, to leave the necklace before she left. He replayed the footage, once, twice, 3 times. Each time, he looked for something he had missed, a glance toward the camera, a moment of hesitation that suggested calculation, a tiny slip that would reveal this whole thing as an elaborate performance. He found nothing, but that didn't mean it wasn't there. Robert Hayes had not built a billion-dollar company by being naive. He had seen every trick in the book. He had been fooled by employees who seemed loyal, partners who seemed honest, friends who seemed genuine. Every single time, he had sworn he would never be fooled again. And every single time, someone found a new way to disappoint him. This girl, this Sophia Brown, she was good. He had to admit that. If this was an act, it was the most convincing act he had ever seen. But what if it wasn't an act? The question gnawed at him. He thought about the necklace, the cheap silver chain, the tiny cross pendant. She had called it her most valuable possession, not because of what it cost, but because of what it meant. Was that real, or was it just a prop in an elaborate con? He thought about the note, the careful handwriting, the mention of Catherine. I hope she's well. She didn't know. She had no idea Catherine was dead. She thought he was calling for his wife the way any man might call for someone who was simply away. That detail, more than anything, made him believe. A con artist would have researched him, would have known about Catherine, would have crafted the note to maximize sympathy, but this girl had simply written what she observed, honestly, without calculation. He thought about the congee, still warm on the stove, the ginger tea, the blanket she had apparently put over his legs. Was that kindness, or manipulation? He didn't know, and that uncertainty infuriated him. Robert stood up abruptly. He couldn't trust her, not yet, maybe not ever. 20 years of experience screamed at him that people like her didn't exist, that everyone had an angle, everyone wanted something, everyone would betray you if the price was right. But he also couldn't ignore what he had seen, so he made a decision, not an emotional decision, not the kind of impulsive gesture he might have made 40 years ago. This was a calculated decision, a careful decision. He would find her, he would test her, he would put her in situations where she could cheat, steal, or cut corners. He would watch her every move, scrutinize her every choice, wait for the moment when she would finally reveal her true nature, and when she did, when she inevitably disappointed him, like everyone else, he would have his proof. He would know once and for all that his cynicism was justified, that trust was for fools, that the world was exactly as dark as he believed it to be. But if she didn't, Robert shook his head. He refused to finish that thought.
Sophia Brown, he said aloud, his voice hard and cold. Let's see what you're really made of. He was not hoping to be proven wrong. He was expecting to be proven right. 3 days later, Sophia received a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually meant bill collectors or scammers, and she had learned to be wary of both. But something made her pick up. Miss Brown? Yes. This is Margaret Chen. I work for Mr. Robert Hayes. Sophia's heart stopped. I'm calling because Mr. Hayes would like to meet with you. At your convenience. Sophia's mind raced. Was this good or bad? Was he grateful or angry? Was he going to thank her or accuse her of something? Yes. Of course, when, Mr. Hayes is available tomorrow afternoon if that works for you. 3 o'clock, I'll send a car. A car. To bring you to his office. Hayes Logistics headquarters downtown. Sophia swallowed hard. Okay, tomorrow at 3, she hung up the phone and stared at it for a long moment. Tomorrow she would find out if her choice had been worth it. The next afternoon, Sophia walked into the headquarters of Hayes Logistics International with her heart pounding.
The building was massive, 47 stories of glass and steel towering over the Chicago skyline. Security guards checked her ID at the door. A receptionist directed her to a private elevator. An assistant met her at the top floor and escorted her down a long hallway lined with expensive art. And then she was standing in front of mahogany doors with a brass nameplate that read Robert Hayes, Chief Executive Officer. The assistant knocked. "Come in," a voice called from inside. Sophia opened the door. Robert Hayes was sitting behind his massive desk, but he didn't look like the man she had found passed out on the balcony. He was clean-shaven now. His silver hair was neatly combed. His suit was pressed, professional, expensive. He looked like a CEO. He also looked nervous, which surprised her. "Miss Brown," he said, standing up. "Thank you for coming. You wanted to see me, sir?" "Yes. Please have a seat." He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Sophia sat on the edge of it, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Robert remained standing. He walked to the window looking out at the city, his back to her. "I found your note," he said finally. "And your necklace." Sophia's throat tightened. "Yes, sir. I watched the security footage. The cameras in the study and kitchen." Sophia blinked. "You have cameras?" "The agency said the house would be empty. Old system. I'd forgotten about it until..." He turned to face her. His expression was strange, intense, searching, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "The cameras don't cover the whole house, but I saw enough. I saw you in the study, clearly panicked, searching for something. I saw you cook for me at 2 a.m. He paused. "You could have taken the money, you know. All of it. I was unconscious. I would never have known." "I know, sir. But you didn't." "No, sir. You stayed with me all night instead, cooked for me, took care of me. You were sick. You needed help." "Why?" The question hung in the air between them. Sophia thought for a moment before answering. "Because you're a person, and you needed help, and I was the only one there." Robert stared at her. "That's it? That's your answer? Is there supposed to be another one?" He let out a short, sharp laugh, more surprise than amusement. "In my experience, Miss Brown, there's always another answer. There's always a calculation. If I help him, maybe he'll reward me. If I stay, maybe he'll owe me." People are very creative when it comes to justifying their own self-interest. Maybe some people are. I'm not. So I noticed. Robert walked to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a small velvet box. "I believe this belongs to you." He held it out to her. Sophia took the box with trembling hands. She opened it. Inside, resting on a cushion of white silk, was her father's necklace. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "No, Miss Brown, thank you." Sophia looked up at him, confused. Robert sat down in the chair beside her, not behind his desk, close enough that she could see the lines on his face, the weariness in his eyes. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I want you to listen." Sophia nodded. "That night, the night you found me, was the anniversary of my wife's death, Catherine. She passed away 20 years ago. That house, that was our first home, where we lived when we were younger, before the empire." His voice grew quiet. "Every year I go back there. I sit in our bedroom. I look at her photographs, and I drink until I can't feel anything anymore." He paused. "I have been doing this for 20 years. 20 years of grief. 20 years of drinking on that one day. 20 years of pushing everyone away because I was afraid of being hurt again." He looked at her directly, and Sophia saw something in his eyes she didn't expect. "Shame. In my note I mentioned you called out her name," Sophia said softly. "I wrote that I hoped she was well. I didn't know. You couldn't have known. That's the point." Robert's voice cracked slightly. "A schemer would have researched me, would have known about Catherine, would have crafted their words to manipulate me. But you just wrote what you saw, what you heard, honestly." He took a breath. "I have built walls around myself so high that I forgot there was a world outside them. I stopped trusting people, stopped letting anyone truly close. I have employees, board members, associates, but I haven't had a real friend, someone I trusted completely, in decades." His voice cracked, just slightly. "And then you came along. A stranger, a cleaning lady, someone with every reason to take what she could and every excuse to justify it. And you didn't take anything. You put it all back. You took care of me all night.
You gave me your most precious possession just to prove you were honest. He reached out and touched the box in her hands. I am 75 years old, and I think you may be the most honest person I have ever met. Sophia didn't know what to say. I don't want praise, sir, she said finally. I just did what anyone should do. But that's exactly the point. Anyone should. Almost no one does. He stood up, walked to the window again. Tell me about yourself, Miss Brown. Why are you working cleaning jobs? Why are you not in school, living the life a young woman your age should be living? Sophia hesitated, but something in his tone, something genuine, something curious made her answer honestly. I was in college, she said. University of Illinois, Chicago. Business administration. I was supposed to graduate next spring. What happened? My mother got sick, kidney disease. The treatments are expensive. I couldn't afford school and her medication at the same time, so I dropped out. Robert turned to face her. How sick? Stage 3. She needs dialysis twice a week. The doctors say she might need a transplant eventually. But, Sophia's voice trailed off. That's not something we can afford to think about right now. And your father? Sophia touched the necklace in her hands. He died when I was 14. Heart attack. No warning. Just gone. Robert was silent for a long moment. So you're supporting your mother, alone, on cleaning wages? Yes, sir. And you gave up your education, your future to do it. She's my mother. There was no choice to make. Robert stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. No choice to make, he repeated slowly. No choice. He walked to his desk. He picked up a pen. He wrote something on a notepad, then tore off the page and held it out to her. This is the name and number of Dr. Patricia Warren. She's the administrator of the Catherine Hayes Memorial Scholarship Fund at Northwestern University. Sophia took the paper, her hand trembling. Catherine Hayes, my late wife. Robert's voice caught slightly. She believed in education. She believed that talent exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. Before she died, she made me promise to do something about that. He paused, his expression distant. I made that promise 20 years ago. But I was too consumed by grief, too buried in work, too busy building walls to keep it. It took me 4 decades to finally honor her wish. I established the fund 3 years ago. Catherine would say I was late. She'd be right. He cleared his throat. The fund provides full scholarships, tuition, books, living expenses to students who demonstrate exceptional ability and exceptional character, students who transfer in from other schools, students who deserve a second chance. He paused. I'm going to recommend you for the scholarship, but I need you to understand something, Miss Brown. This isn't a guaranteed acceptance. I can open the door, but you have to walk through it yourself. Sophia's heart, which had been soaring, suddenly felt heavy again. What do you mean? The scholarship has a rigorous selection process. Catherine insisted on that. She didn't want it to become a favor factory for people I happen to like. She wanted it to go to people who truly deserved it. Robert pulled out a folder from his desk drawer. Here's what you'll need to do. First, you'll have to take the scholarship's internal assessment exam. It's designed specifically for transfer students and non-traditional applicants. Tests critical thinking, writing, quantitative reasoning. Nothing you can't handle if you were maintaining a 3.7 GPA before, but you'll need to prepare. The exam is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Sophia's mind raced. She hadn't taken any standardized test in over 2 years. She had been too busy working, too exhausted to think about academics. Second, Robert continued, you'll need to write a personal essay, 5,000 words minimum. The topic is a moment that defined your character. The committee will evaluate your writing, your self-awareness, and your ability to articulate your values. Sophia swallowed hard. Writing had never been her strongest skill. Third, there's a panel interview. 3 members of the scholarship committee will question you for approximately 1 hour. They'll ask about your background, your goals, your failures, your choices. They're looking for authenticity. They can spot rehearsed answers from a mile away. Robert closed the folder and looked at her directly. I'll be honest with you, Miss Brown. Last year we had over 200 applicants for 3 scholarship spots. Many of them had perfect test scores,
stellar recommendations, and heartbreaking personal stories. Only 3 made it through. He leaned forward. I believe in you. I believe you have what it takes. But believing isn't enough. You'll have to prove it. To the committee, to Northwestern, to yourself. Sophia stared at the paper in her hand. The name, the number, the mountain she would have to climb. Part of her wanted to give the paper back, to say thank you but no thank you, to retreat to the safety of her cleaning jobs and her small life and her manageable expectations. But another part, the part that had stayed all night with a stranger, cooking for him and caring for him, knew that she couldn't. What if I fail? She asked quietly. What if I do all of this and they still say no? Robert was silent for a moment. Then you'll try again next year. And the year after that. And the year after that. He smiled slightly. That's what Catherine would have said. She never believed in giving up. Neither should you. Sophia looked at the paper one more time. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. When do I start? The application deadline is in 6 weeks. Dr. Warren will send you the full requirements. Robert paused. I suggest you start studying tonight. Sophia nodded. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Mr. Hayes, yes. Thank you, for the opportunity, and for, she hesitated, for not making it easy. Robert raised an eyebrow. You're thanking me for making things difficult. I'm thanking you for treating me like I'm capable of hard things. She met his eyes. Everyone else in my life has either pitied me or ignored me. You're the first person who's actually expected something from me. She opened the door. I won't let you down. Robert watched her go. No, he said softly, to the empty room. I don't believe you will. The next 6 weeks were brutal. Sophia worked her cleaning jobs during the day. Then she went home, slept for 4 hours, and woke up at 5 a.m. to study. She borrowed test prep books from the library, materials designed for critical thinking and analytical writing, the kinds of skills the scholarship exam would test. She watched free tutorial videos online. She took practice test after practice test, pushing through exhaustion, pushing through doubt, pushing through the voice in her head that kept whispering, "You're not good enough." Her mother worried constantly, "You're going to make yourself sick," Gloria said one night, watching Sophia hunch over her books at 3 a.m. "This can't be healthy. It's temporary." Sophia replied, the same thing she always said, just 6 more weeks. But there were moments when she wasn't sure she would make it. The first practice test, she scored poorly. Mediocre, forgettable, not even close to scholarship material. She cried that night. Then she wiped her eyes and kept studying. The second practice test, better but still not enough. The third improving. The fourth real progress. By the fifth practice test, 2 days before the real exam, she was scoring in ranges she would have been proud of. Still not perfect, but maybe, just maybe, good enough. The essay was harder. Sophia had never been good at writing about herself. She could write reports, analyze data, solve problems. But putting her own feelings into words felt like trying to catch smoke with her bare hands. She wrote 7 drafts, threw away 6 of them. The final version wasn't polished or elegant. It was raw, honest, painful. It told the story of a girl who had lost her father too young, who had watched her mother fight for survival, who had faced a choice between theft and integrity, and had chosen integrity, even when it cost her everything. It wasn't the best essay ever written, but it was true. And the interview terrified her more than anything. 3 strangers in a conference room, asking questions she couldn't prepare for, judging her worth based on answers she couldn't rehearse. What if she froze? What if she said the wrong thing? What if they saw through her, saw the scared little girl underneath the brave facade, and decided she wasn't worth their investment? The night before the interview, Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her father's necklace clutched in her hand. "Help me, Daddy," she whispered into the darkness. "I don't know if I can do this." There was no answer. Of course there wasn't. But somehow, holding that necklace, feeling its familiar weight against her palm, she felt a little less alone. The interview lasted 57 minutes. They asked about her childhood, her father's death, her mother's illness, her decision to drop out of school, her time as a cleaning lady. They asked about her failures,
her weaknesses, her fears. They asked what she would do if she got the scholarship and then failed a class, if she faced another ethical dilemma, if life knocked her down again. Sophia answered every question honestly. Not perfectly. She stumbled over words, lost her train of thought, had to ask for clarification more than once. But she was honest, authentic, real. When it was over, she had no idea if she had passed or failed. She only knew that she had given everything she had. 2 weeks later the letter arrived. Sophia's hands shook so badly she could barely open the envelope. "Dear Miss Brown," she read aloud, her mother standing beside her. "On behalf of the Catherine Hayes Memorial Scholarship Committee, we are pleased to inform you." She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Her mother was already crying, already pulling her into an embrace, already whispering thank you, thank you, thank you into her hair. Sophia held on to her mother and closed her eyes. She had climbed the mountain, and the view from the top was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. But Robert wasn't finished. The scholarship was just the beginning. He called her into his office the day after the acceptance letter arrived. "Miss Brown," he said, standing up as she entered, "congratulations." "Thank you, sir. I couldn't have done it without." He held up his hand. "Wait, I'm not finished. I have another proposal." Sophia blinked. "Sir, your tuition will be covered by the scholarship, your books will be covered, and I will personally cover your mother's medical expenses for as long as necessary." Sophia's mouth fell open. "Sir, I'm not finished. I need you to understand something first." He walked to the window, his back to her. "I didn't get where I am by being naive, Miss Brown. I've been fooled before. I've trusted people who didn't deserve it. I've made investments that looked promising and turned out to be disasters." He turned to face her. "So I'm not going to hand you a check and wish you luck. That's not how this works." Sophia felt her heart sink. Of course, it was too good to be true. There was always a catch. "What I'm offering you," Robert continued, "is an opportunity, not a gift, an opportunity." He walked back to his desk and pulled out a folder. "I've done my research on you, Miss Brown. I know about your GPA. I know about your scholarship. I know you were 18 months away from graduating with a degree in business administration before you dropped out." Sophia stiffened. "You investigated me. I investigate everyone. It's how I've survived this long." He opened the folder. "What I found was impressive. Dean's List, Academic Excellence Award, glowing recommendations from your professors. One of them called you the most promising student I've taught in 20 years. He looked up at her. "So here's what I'm proposing. Not charity, a trial. A trial. You go back to school. I'll cover your tuition, your books, your living expenses. But you also work for me, part-time. 20 hours a week. Entry-level position in our operations department." Sophia's mind was racing. "I don't understand. You want me to work for you while I'm in school. I want to see what you're made of." Robert leaned forward. "Anyone can be honest once, Miss Brown. Anyone can do the right thing when the stakes are low and the temptation is manageable. What I want to know is whether you can be honest consistently, whether you can work hard when no one is watching, whether you can handle pressure without compromising your principles." He slid the folder across the desk toward her. "This is a 12-month trial period. You'll start at the bottom, just like everyone else. You'll report to a supervisor who won't know anything about our arrangement. You'll be evaluated on your performance, your attitude, your integrity. No special treatment, no favoritism, no shortcuts, and my mother's medical expenses. I'll set up a fund. The bills will be paid automatically, but the fund is contingent on your continued enrollment and employment. You drop out, you quit, you fail, the fund stops." Sophia stared at him. That's a lot of pressure." "Yes it is." Robert's voice was firm. "Life is pressure, Miss Brown. I'm not offering you an escape from reality. I'm offering you a chance to prove yourself. To me, and more importantly to yourself." He stood up and extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Sophia looked at his hand, then at the folder, then at the necklace around her neck. This wasn't a fairy tale. There was no magic wand, no instant transformation, no happily ever after handed to her on a silver platter. This was work, hard work. Months of juggling school and a job while taking care of her mother. Months of being tested, evaluated, judged. But it was also hope, real hope, the first she had felt in a long time. She reached out and shook his hand. Deal. The next 12 months were the hardest of Sophia's life. She enrolled at Northwestern University for the spring semester. The transfer process was intensive, but the scholarship committee had cleared the path. She took a full course load, 15 credit hours of advanced business classes, each one more demanding than the last, and she worked 20 hours a week at Hayes Logistics, just as Robert had promised. Entry-level position in the operations department, filing paperwork, answering phones, running errands for supervisors who had no idea she had any connection to the CEO. The work was tedious, the hours were brutal. Some nights, Sophia would finish her shift at 10 p.m., take the train back to her apartment, and stay up until 3 a.m. studying for exams. She would sleep for 4 hours, wake up, attend classes, and do it all over again. Her mother's condition stabilized, thanks to the new treatments the medical fund made possible. But Gloria worried constantly about her daughter. "You're working yourself to death," she would say. "This isn't sustainable, it's temporary." Sophia would reply, "Just 12 months. I can do anything for 12 months. But there were moments when she wasn't sure. There were nights when she sat alone in her tiny apartment, surrounded by textbooks and spreadsheets, and wondered if she was fooling herself, wondered if Robert Hayes was just using her for some kind of experiment, wondered if she was anything more than an interesting case study for a bored billionaire. And then there were the whispers at work. Sophia didn't know how it started. Maybe someone had seen her leaving Robert's office that first day. Maybe someone had noticed that she was never assigned the worst tasks, even though she was the newest employee. Maybe it was just the natural suspicion that arose whenever someone young and unknown seemed to be on a fast track. Whatever the reason, the rumors spread. She's sleeping with the CEO, she's his illegitimate daughter, she's got something on him, blackmail, probably. Sophia heard the whispers, she saw the sidelong glances, she felt the cold shoulders from colleagues who had been friendly before. It hurt, more than she wanted to admit. One day, about 6 months into her trial period, she broke down in the bathroom at work. She locked herself in a stall and cried, silently, desperately, her hand pressed against her mouth to muffle the sobs. She wanted to quit. She wanted to walk into Robert's office and throw his opportunity back in his face. She wanted to tell him that his experiment was cruel, that he was playing with her life like she was a lab rat, that she didn't need his charity or his tests or his judgment. But she didn't. Because when she finally stopped crying, when she finally wiped her eyes and looked at herself in the mirror, she remembered something. Her father's voice. "The world is gonna test you, baby girl. But the only thing you truly own is your integrity." This was a test, the hardest one she had ever faced, and she would not fail. Sophia walked out of that bathroom with her head held high. She went back to her desk, she finished her work, she went to class, she studied, she took care of her mother, and she kept going. Robert watched from a distance. He never intervened, never pulled strings, never told anyone to treat her differently or give her special assignments. He simply observed. He read her performance reviews, all positive, despite the hostile work environment. He checked her grades, straight A's, despite the impossible workload. He noted her attendance perfect, despite the exhaustion that must have been crushing her. And slowly, reluctantly, he began to believe. Not because she had done one extraordinary thing on one extraordinary night, but because she did ordinary things, extraordinarily well. Day after day after day, she showed up. She worked hard, she never complained, she never cut corners, she never compromised her integrity, even when it would have been easy, even when no one was watching. Robert had spent his entire career looking for people like this, people he could trust, people who would do the right thing, not because they were being observed, but because it was simply who they were. He had almost given up believing they existed. But here she was. At the end of the 12 months, Robert called Sophia into his office. She walked in expecting another evaluation, another test, another hoop to jump through. Instead, she found Robert standing by the window, holding a small velvet box. "You passed," he said simply. Sophia blinked. "I'm sorry. The trial period, it's over. You passed." He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Something warm, something almost like pride. "I've watched you for a year, Miss Brown. I've seen you struggle. I've seen you doubt. I've seen you get knocked down and get back up again. I've seen you face rumors and hostility and exhaustion, and I've never once seen you compromise who you are." He walked toward her and held out the velvet box. "This belongs to you." Sophia opened it. Inside, resting on white silk, was her father's necklace, cleaned, polished, the chain repaired where it had been worn thin. Her eyes filled with tears. "I had it restored," Robert said quietly. "I hope you don't mind." Sophia couldn't speak. She could only shake her head. Robert cleared his throat. "Now, about your future." He handed her an envelope. "Full scholarship to Northwestern for the remainder of your degree. A permanent position at Hayes Logistics upon graduation, not entry level, but management track. Your mother's medical expenses covered indefinitely, no strings attached." Sophia stared at the envelope, then at Robert, then at the necklace in her hands. "Why?" she whispered. "Why all of this?" Robert sat down heavily in his chair. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he spoke, and his voice was different, softer, older, more vulnerable than she had ever heard it. "Because I was lost, Miss Brown. I have been lost for a very long time. I built walls around my heart, because I thought they would protect me. Instead they imprisoned me. I stopped trusting people, stopped letting anyone truly close. I kept everyone at arm's length, even the people who worked with me for decades." He looked at her, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "And then you came along. A stranger, a cleaning lady, someone with every reason to take what she could, and every excuse to justify it. And you didn't. You did the right thing. You stayed with me all night, you took care of me, and then you kept doing the right thing, day after day, month after month, even when it was hard, even when no one was watching, even when it cost you everything." He smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "You showed me that I was wrong, that good people still exist, that integrity still matters, that trust is still possible." He stood up and extended his hand. "Consider this an investment, not in your education or your career, in the only thing that truly matters." Sophia took his hand. "What's that?" "Hope," Robert said simply. "You gave me back my hope, Miss Brown. This is my way of returning the favor." But hope, as Sophia would learn, is not a straight line. It's a winding road with unexpected turns, steep cliffs, and moments when you wonder if you've lost your way entirely. 3 months into Sophia's first full semester at Northwestern, Robert Hayes disappeared. Not physically, he still came to the office, still attended board meetings, still signed documents and made decisions, but the man Sophia had come to know, the man who called her every Sunday evening to ask about her classes and her mother, that man vanished. The first missed call came on a rainy Sunday in October. Sophia waited by her phone until 10 p.m. Then she sent a text, "Everything okay, Mr. Hayes?" No response. She told herself he was busy. He was a CEO after all. He had responsibilities far more important than checking in on a scholarship student. But the next Sunday he missed the call again, and the Sunday after that. By the 4th week Sophia knew something was wrong. She found out the truth from an unlikely source, Margaret Chen, Robert's assistant, who had made the original call to invite Sophia to the office. Margaret had taken a liking to Sophia during the scholarship application process, and they had stayed in touch. "It's the anniversary coming up again," Margaret said quietly, meeting Sophia for coffee near campus. "It always hits him hard, but this year he started early. His doctor found him passed out in his office twice last week." Sophia's heart sank. Has anyone tried to help him? Everyone has tried. His doctor, his board members, the few people he still talks to. Margaret looked at Sophia with something like sympathy. "He won't listen to any of them. He's pushed everyone away." Sophia stared at her coffee growing cold in her hands. She thought about calling him, showing up at his office, staging some kind of intervention. Wasn't that what you did when someone who had helped you was struggling? Wasn't that what gratitude demanded? But even as she considered it, she heard her father's voice in her head. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, baby girl. You can only save yourself. Sophia had learned that lesson the hard way. Growing up, she had watched her mother try to save her uncle, Gloria's younger brother, from his gambling addiction. Her mother had given him money, let him stay with them, made excuses for him, covered up his mistakes, and every time he had taken what she offered and gone right back to the casino. It had nearly destroyed their family. In the end, her uncle had to save himself, and he had, but only after everyone stopped enabling him, stopped rescuing him, stopped making his problem their problem. Sophia understood now that the same was true for Robert. She couldn't save him, she couldn't fix him, she couldn't make him stop drinking or start caring about himself again. That was his journey, his choice, his battle. What she could do was protect herself, keep her boundaries, stay focused on her own path. And so she did. She stopped waiting for Sunday calls that never came. She stopped checking her phone obsessively, hoping for a message. She stopped making Robert's recovery her responsibility. She went to class. She studied. She worked her part-time job at Hayes Logistics, the same job Robert had given her, the same job that now felt strange and hollow without his presence behind it. She took care of her mother. She maintained her grades. She kept her integrity intact, and she waited. 2 months later, on a cold December evening, Sophia's phone rang. She almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, and she had learned to be wary of unknown callers, debt collectors, telemarketers, scammers, but something made her pick up. Miss Brown? The voice was rough, tired, barely recognizable, but she knew it instantly. Mr. Hayes. A long pause. Then a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. I owe you an apology. Sophia sat down on her bed. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. You don't owe me anything, Mr. Hayes. I do. I made promises. I broke them. I broke them. His voice cracked. I fell apart. I let the darkness win again, and I couldn't face you, couldn't face anyone. Sophia closed her eyes. Where are you now? Rehab. Another pause. 37 days sober. Not that I'm counting. Despite everything, Sophia smiled. That's good, Mr. Hayes. That's really good. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm trying, and that, he took a deep breath, and that I understand if you want nothing more to do with me. I wouldn't blame you. I was supposed to be your mentor, your supporter, and instead I became another person who let you down. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. She thought about everything Robert had done for her. The scholarship, the job, the opportunity that had changed her life. She thought about everything he hadn't done. The missed calls, the broken promises, the months of silence when she had needed guidance and received nothing. And she thought about something else, something her mother had told her years ago, when Sophia was angry at her uncle for all the pain he had caused. People are complicated, baby, Gloria had said. They can be good and broken at the same time. Loving someone doesn't mean accepting everything they do. It means seeing them clearly, all of them, and choosing to keep them in your life anyway, or choosing not to. Both are valid. Sophia opened her eyes. Mr. Hayes, I want to say something, and I need you to hear me. I'm listening. I'm grateful for everything you've done for me. Truly grateful. You gave me an opportunity when I had nothing. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She paused. But I can't be responsible for your recovery. I can't be the person who saves you. That's not fair to me. And honestly, it's not fair to you either. You have to save yourself. Silence on the other end of the line. I know, Robert said finally. I know that. I'm not calling to ask you to rescue me. I'm calling to tell you that I'm rescuing myself. For the first time in my life, I'm actually doing the work. Not because anyone is making me, but because I finally realized that I want to live. Really live. Not just exist. He cleared his throat. I called because I wanted you to know that you didn't waste your faith in me. That the integrity you showed me, the hope you gave me, it wasn't for nothing. It just took me a while to figure out how to use it. Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes. I'm glad, Mr. Hayes. I really am. Robert. What? Call me Robert. I think we've been through enough together to drop the formalities. Sophia laughed. A real laugh. Warm and genuine. Okay, Robert. I'll see you when I get out, Sophia. If you're willing. I'm willing. She hung up the phone and sat in the quiet of her tiny apartment for a long time. She thought about integrity, about what it really meant.
It wasn't just about honesty, it wasn't just about doing the right thing when no one was watching. It was about knowing yourself, knowing your limits, knowing where you ended and other people began. It was about helping others without losing yourself, about caring without drowning, about giving without emptying. Sophia had learned that lesson the hard way, and she would carry it with her for the rest of her life. Integrity isn't saving others, it's not losing yourself while they save themselves. 2 years later, Sophia Brown graduated from Northwestern University with a bachelor's degree in business administration. She graduated magna cum laude, she graduated at the top of her class, and in the audience sitting in the front row were two people: her mother Gloria, tears streaming down her face, and Robert Hayes, applauding louder than anyone. After the ceremony, the three of them went to dinner at a quiet restaurant downtown. Gloria, healthier now, with a successful kidney transplant behind her, couldn't stop hugging her daughter. "Your father would be so proud," she kept saying. "So proud." Robert watched them with a strange expression on his face. Happy, yes, but also something else, something like longing. "Miss Brown," he said finally, "I have a proposal for you." Sophia looked up. "Sir, I'm getting old. My company needs fresh blood. Someone young, smart, ethical." He smiled. "Someone who can't be bought." Sophia's heart started to race. "I want you to come work for me. Starting position: junior executive in our strategic planning division. Competitive salary, full benefits, room for advancement." He paused. "A lot of room for advancement if you're as good as I think you are." Sophia didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said. "Yes, sir. Absolutely yes." Robert nodded, satisfied. "One more thing." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I had this made for you, a graduation present." Sophia opened the box. Inside was a new necklace, a silver chain just like her father's. But the pendant was different, not a cross, but a small silver star. "Look on the back," Robert said. Sophia turned the pendant over. Engraved in tiny letters were two words: "Integrity matters." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Robert shook his head. "No, Sophia. Thank you for reminding me what matters." He looked out the window at the Chicago skyline. "I was asleep," he said quietly. "For a long time, not just that night at the house, but for years, decades. I forgot who I was. I forgot what I believed. I forgot that there was anything in this world worth trusting." He turned back to her. "You woke me up." 15 years later, Sophia Brown, 37 years old, stood in the corner office on the 47th floor of Hayes Logistics International. Her office now, well, technically, it was still Robert's office, but Robert had retired 3 years ago, moved permanently to the old house in the suburbs, the one where they had first met, and handed Sophia the keys to the kingdom. Not as CEO, not yet. The board had needed convincing, and Sophia had agreed with them. "Make me earn it," she had told Robert. "I don't want anyone to say I got here because of you." So she had started as vice president of strategic operations. She had modernized the company's logistics network, expanded into new markets, and increased profits by 40%. She had proven herself to every skeptic, every doubter, every person who had whispered that she was only there because of the old man's favoritism. And 3 years later, when the board unanimously voted to make her CEO, no one questioned whether she deserved it. Now, at 37, she was one of the youngest CEOs in the company's history. She was also the first black CEO, and the first woman. The business press called it a fairy tale, a cleaning lady turned corporate executive, a rags to riches story for the modern age. But Sophia knew the truth was more complicated than that. It wasn't about luck, it wasn't about charity, it was about choices. Every day we make choices, small ones and big ones, choices that define who we are and who we will become. Sophia had made her choice that night, in the cold bedroom of an empty house, looking at a fortune in cash that wasn't hers to take. And that choice had led her here. She turned from the window and looked at the wall behind her desk. There, in a simple black frame, hung a document. It wasn't her diploma, it wasn't her MBA, it wasn't any of the awards and certifications that decorated the rest of her office. It was her old Northwestern student ID card. The photo showed a young woman with tired eyes and a determined expression. A woman who had lost everything and was fighting to get it back.
Beside the ID card, in the same frame, was a handwritten note. To Sophia, may this remind you of where you came from, and where integrity can take you. Robert, Sophia touched the frame gently. Then she sat down at her desk and got to work. There was a knock at the door. Come in, Sophia called. A young man entered, Michael, her assistant. Mrs. Brown, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Thank you, Michael. Also, he hesitated. There's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment. She says her name is Nina. She's Subber. She's one of the cleaning staff. Sophia looked up. Send her in. Michael looked surprised, but nodded and left. A moment later a young woman entered the office. She was wearing work clothes, the kind Sophia had worn years ago. Her hands were trembling, her eyes were red, like she had been crying. Mrs. Brown, she said, her voice shaking. I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you're busy. I didn't know who else to talk to. Sophia stood up and walked around her desk. Sit down, she said gently. Tell me what's wrong. The girl, she couldn't have been more than 20, sat on the edge of the leather chair, the same chair Sophia had sat in, years ago, facing a different CEO. My mother is sick, the girl said. Cancer. I've been trying to pay for her treatments, but I can't afford it. I had to drop out of school. I've been working double shifts, but it's not enough. And last night I found, she stopped, looked down at her hands. You found what? Sophia asked softly. Someone left their wallet in one of the offices I was cleaning. There was cash in it, a lot of cash. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. I turned it in, the girl said quickly. I gave it to security. I didn't take anything. I promise. I believe you. The girl looked up, surprised. You do? Yes. Why? Sophia smiled. Because I know what it feels like to make that choice. She walked to the wall and took down the framed ID card. She carried it over to the girl and held it out. Do you know who this is? The girl looked at the photo, shook her head. That's me, Sophia said. 15 years ago, I was just like you. I had nothing. I was scared. I was desperate. She told the girl the story, all of it. The scattered money, the necklace, the note, the night she had stayed to take care of a stranger. By the end the girl was crying. What happened to you was not fair, Sophia said. Life is not fair, but that doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean you become someone you're not. She put her hand on the girl's shoulder. You made the right choice, and I'm going to make sure that choice pays off. That afternoon, Sophia made some calls. 3 weeks later, Nina was enrolled at the University of Illinois Chicago with a full scholarship from the Hayes Foundation. The charitable organization Robert had expanded significantly before his retirement. 6 months after that, Nina's mother finished her cancer treatment. The bills were covered. 4 years after that, Nina graduated with honors. And 10 years after that, Nina would become the head of human resources at Hayes Logistics International. Hired by Sophia personally, mentored by Sophia directly, inspired by Sophia's story, the cycle continued. Robert Hayes passed away peacefully in his sleep on a quiet Tuesday morning, 3 months after his 96th birthday. He died in his own bed, in the old house in the suburbs, the house where he and Catherine had lived when they were younger and poor and happy, with a smile on his face and a photograph in his hands. The photograph showed 3 people, Robert, Sophia and Gloria Brown, taken at Sophia's graduation dinner all those years ago. On the back of the photograph, in Robert's shaky handwriting, were 3 words, my real family. The funeral was small and private, just as Robert had wanted. No press, no business associates, just the people who had actually known him. Sophia gave the eulogy. She told the story of a bitter old man who had lost his faith in humanity, a man who had built walls so high that he had trapped himself inside them, a man who was slowly dying, not from old age, but from loneliness, and she told the story of how that man had been saved. Robert Hayes was not a perfect person, she said, her voice steady even as tears rolled down her cheeks. He made mistakes, he hurt people, he lost his way. She looked out at the small gathering of mourners, but he found his way back. Not through money or power or success, through something much simpler, through trust. She held up her necklace, the silver star pendant Robert had given her at graduation. He trusted me when he had no reason to, when every experience in his life had taught him not to. He took a chance. He made an investment, not in stocks or real estate or companies, in a person. Her voice grew stronger. That investment paid off beyond anything either of us could have imagined. Not because I'm special, not because I'm talented, but because he gave me a chance, and I worked every single day to earn it. She smiled through her tears. Robert used to say that integrity is the only thing you truly own. Everything else can be taken away, but your integrity, that's yours forever. Unless you give it up yourself. She paused, her fingers brushing the silver star pendant at her throat. I remember the last conversation we had, 3 days before he passed. He was sitting in the old bedroom, the one where I first found him, passed out on the balcony, all those years ago. He had moved back there permanently, after he retired, said he wanted to be close to Catherine again. A small laugh escaped her lips. He looked at me and said, "Sophia, I've made a lot of money in my life, built a lot of buildings, closed a lot of deals, but you know what I'm most proud of?" I thought he was going to say the company, or the foundation, or some acquisition I'd never heard of. She shook her head. He said, "I'm most proud that I finally learned to trust someone. Took me 75 years, but I got there eventually." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. My mother passed away 2 years ago. Kidney failure. Despite everything we tried, I was holding her hand when she went. And the last thing she said to me was, "You showed up, baby, every single day. That's all I ever needed." Sophia's voice wavered, but she steadied herself. "Tonight I'm announcing the Gloria Brown Memorial Fund. My mother spent her whole life choosing between doctor visits and groceries, between medication and rent. She taught me that love means showing up, even when it costs you everything." She looked out at the sea of faces. "This fund will provide medical care to families who can't afford it. Not because they deserve charity, because they deserve choices, real choices, the kind my mother never had." Sophia stepped back from the podium. "That's all I have to say. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for believing that small acts of kindness can change the world." She touched her necklace one final time, "Because they can. I'm living proof." The story of Robert Hayes and Sophia Brown spread far beyond Chicago. It was told in business schools as a case study in ethical leadership. It was featured in documentaries about corporate responsibility. It was shared on social media, inspiring millions of people around the world. But the story that mattered most was told in quiet moments, in private conversations, in the small spaces where real change happens. It was told by a mother to her daughter, explaining why honesty matters even when it costs you. It was told by a teacher to a student, demonstrating that success isn't just about what you achieve, but how you achieve it. It was told by a boss to an employee, showing that trust is the foundation of everything. And every time the story was told, it ended the same way, with a reminder that we all face moments of choice. Moments when we can take the easy path or the right path. Moments when we can give in to temptation or hold on to our integrity. A reminder that those moments define us. A reminder that the poorest pocket can hold the richest heart. A reminder that a single act of honesty, in a single moment, can change the entire trajectory of a life. And a reminder that somewhere, always someone is watching. Not a security camera, not a boss, not God, just ourselves. Our own conscience, our own integrity, the only thing we truly own. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe and share, so that stories of integrity like this one can reach even farther. Thank you for watching, and see you again in the next story.